Hello everybody, Assalamu alaikum. Let's continue with our topic. Our review, we were in elasticity. Sorry. No, we finished elasticity. We were in yeah. Last class we were doing a labor market. Okay, so I'm reviewing a bit of labor market. Hmm. Okay, so in the labor market, we discussed that the wage rate was determined by the forces of demand and supply. Then we did uh, d- demand factors and supply factors. The demand factors were uh, wage rate, derived demand, cost of recruitment, availability of substitute of labor, productivity of labor. And for supply of labor, the factors were wage rate, school leaving age, retirement age, willingness of women to work, immigrants, and dependency ratio. These are the thing we discussed. Then um, next we have the wage differences between different occupations. Okay. We stopped at this point. Okay. So see that the wage is different for different kind of occupation. So why is that? Okay. So let's see it graphically. Okay, let's put wage rate over here and the x-axis, and let's put quantity of labor here. Okay. So see we already did um, supply curve of labor. Okay. So see now I'm showing you two different kind of supply curve. One is a bit inelastic, another one is a bit elastic. Okay. So see that which kind of labor are easy to increase. Okay. So which kind of labor are easy to increase? Unskilled labor or skilled labor? Okay. Supply of labor, which one is easy to increase? That means more response, we can respond whenever we need this kind of labor. We can easily increase the number of this kind of labor. Okay. So which are this kind of labor? Skilled labor or unskilled labor? Yes, unskilled labor, right? Okay, because who is an unskilled labor? Almost everybody. Okay, you don't need a training, you don't need to have any skill. So most of the people around us are unskilled labor. And now, who is a skilled labor? Okay, so you need proper training, long training. Okay, so afterwards you'll become a skilled labor. Okay, so see, both of them are supply of labor, right? But you see, this is more elastic, so more responsive. So see, this is supply of unskilled labor, and this is supply of skilled labor. Okay, so see, the supply of unskilled labor is a bit flatter, and skilled labor is a bit steeper. Okay, now if you put any demand curve over here, Okay, see, the wage rate of unskilled labor is low, and wage rate of skilled labor is high. Okay, it's very logical, right? Because a skilled labor definitely deserves a better wage rate. Okay, they're more productive, more efficient, they know lots of stuff. Okay, they're skilled. Okay. And unskilled laborer, they don't know much. Okay, they're full of errors. They don't know all kind. You cannot do all kind of job with them, right? So that's fine. Mm, that's the situation that um, unless the supply of skilled labor is too much and it's enough, but the wage rate on the other hand is very low for them. Okay. Okay, so this was the last topic of this chapter. Okay, let's move into the next chapter. Then over here you'll find interference in the labor market. So it can be interfered by the government and the trade union. Okay, these are the most two popular interference in the labor market. Okay, so minimum wage legislation is a method of interference in the labor market by the government. Okay, so it's basically a law, legislation. It's a law. So this is the minimum amount. Minimum wage means the minimum amount of payment that the employer has to pay to the workers. Okay, and no one can pay below the minimum wage. So minimum wage is basically a wage rate which is above the equilibrium wage rate. Okay, so let's see. Let's draw it here. So this is a normal demand and supply curve for labor. Okay. So this intersection point is the equilibrium wage, and this is equilibrium quantity. Okay, so this is where demand and supply is equal. Okay, but sometimes government observes, or there are lots of protest and everything, and then somehow government decides that okay, let's increase the wage rate. Okay, it's too low. Okay. Mm, when the government finds out that the equilibrium wage rate is too low, they interfere and say that okay, this is the minimum. Okay, you cannot, no one can pay equilibrium now. Minimum they have to pay W1. Okay, which is the minimum. mm, okay, so this is minimum wage legislation. It's law which ensures that the employer has to pay the minimum this amount of yeah, wage rate to the workers. Okay. So let's go through some of the reasons government do that. Okay, to benefit the disadvantaged workers. Then there are some people who are disadvantaged, like disabled people, or even women. In many societies, women are disadvantaged because usually what happens that so even in our country you'll find many people, many women who are getting who are underpaid. Okay. So if the government can ensure that this is the minimum amount, then no one can pay below this wage rate. Okay, so there is a minimum wage legislation in our country as well. Okay, most probably it's around 8,000 taka per month. Okay, Uh, it's not the exact amount, maybe it's somewhere around 8,000. Okay, so but you'll find lots of other people who are getting paid which are below this amount. Okay, so they have the right to yeah, inform the government if someone is receiving a wage rate below this amount. So next is then poverty. Okay, so poverty is a great problem for a country. So if the government can improve the minimum wage level, so income will rise and it will contribute to the betterment of the poverty situation, right? Next is helping the business. Okay, so many people also argue that it increases the quality of the output because as you are paying more to your workers, what will happen that the quality of work will increase because the workers will be now more motivated to work. Okay, so that's why they will come up. Yeah, the quality of the work will improve. Staff turnover, then absenteeism will fall, turnover will fall, productivity will rise. Okay. So we'll discuss about the trade union later, but see, there's some controversy that whether this is a good step or bad step. Okay, so effect of the minimum wage legislation. This is an important question. So see what's happening that because of this rising wage rate, what will happen to the demand for labor? Oops, sorry. Sorry, I labeled it wrong. Okay, this should be demand and this is supply. Sorry, silly mistake. Okay. um, so see that so see what's happening that the supply of labor is increasing and demand for labor is decreasing. Okay, so this rise in wage rate will reduce the demand. Okay, so this is a very important thing because if the demand falls, what will happen that that means why the demand is falling because now the farms have to pay more to the labor. Okay, so what's happening that the farms will have to pay more, so the production cost, the labor cost is improving. So to cope up this situation, some of the farms may fire some of their workers. Okay, they'll try to produce with a low amount, a lower number of workers. Okay, because the production cost is rising. Okay, okay, so demand may fall, so this is a bad thing, right? And another thing may happen at the same time as the wage rate is increasing. The supply of labor will rise to this part. Okay, so this will become the new supply of labor. Okay, so supply of labor is increasing. So what's happening that supply of labor is increasing because the higher labor higher wage rate is attracting more labor into the market. Okay, so it will be more laborers will be attracted and they'll come over here and they'll try to join the labor force. Okay, so at the same time what's happening so this rise in fall in demand and rise in supply will create an excess supply of labor into the market. Okay, we already did that in the demand and supply equilibrium chapter, right? So this is the amount that will be disequilibrium, right? Because the demand is lower than the supply. In the equilibrium, the situation was like demand and supply was equal, but now what's happening? Demand is falling and yeah, supply is rising, so it will create an imbalance, a disequilibrium in the market. Okay, so what does this lead to? It leads to excess supply of labor. Okay, that means there will be laborers in the market, but they won't be able to find any kind of job because they are um, they're willing to work, but they won't be able to find a job because there are more in number compared to the available jobs available in the market. Okay, so this is excess supply. Okay. Hmm. So see, government is trying to fix a problem over here, but it may lead to another problem, unemployment. Okay, government is trying to solve the poverty situation, but it may lead to unemployment, and it may create another problem. Okay, so this is the situation. Next, we have. Okay, the trade union. Okay, so trade union is an organization that exists to protect the interest of workers. So in most countries, there are numerous different types of trade unions available in the available. Okay, so these they are there to protect the interest of the worker. So what are their aims? Let's go through. Like they can negotiate the payment. If the payment is low, then they can negotiate and come up, try to negotiate the pay. The working condition, with the working condition is too bad, like not enough light, and very bad environment maybe. Okay, so at that time they can negotiate with the employer to improve it. Okay. They can give legal protection to the members of the trade union. Then they put pressure on the government to pass legislation, like we just did a legislation like minimum wage legislation or something like that. Okay, then they can provide financial benefits like strike pay whenever it's necessary. Okay. Okay, so this is the situation. Okay, so again, the effect can be shown over here as well. So if the trade union is too strong in a country, okay, so they can also push the wage rate above. Okay, so again, if the trade union is too strong, it may also lead to a very high amount of wage rate, and it can also create a situation like there's like too much quantities, high amount of supply and low amount of demand, so which may again lead to lower excess supply. Okay. Okay, next is production. So whenever we are making or something, so that's production. Okay, so we can make a finished goods or semi-finished goods. Okay, so these are example of production. So we need basically four things to produce. These are land, labor, capital, and enterprise. Labor means labor includes natural resources, all kinds of natural resources, and labor includes human resources. Okay, so and capital includes all kind of artificial resources. Okay, so land includes all kind of natural resources, including forest, the pond, sea, everything. And labor includes all kind of worker. It can be physical worker or mental worker. Okay. Then here, so these are known as human capital, and capital includes all kind of artificial resources or man-made resources. So there are basically two types of capital: working capital and fixed capital. Working capital includes all kind of resources like raw materials and components that are constantly changing its form. Okay. And fixed capital includes all kind of um, capital, including like the office, shop, machineries, equipments. Okay, so these are like fixed, more fixed kind of thing, right? Okay. And last one is enterprise or entrepreneur. Enterprise is an organization which organizes all the other resources for production. And entrepreneurs is basically the owner of the enterprise. So these are like individual or group of individual who are were coming up with a unique idea, they're coming up with a new product, they're the owner. Then they provide money to set up the business. Then they're also responsible for directing the business. They're also taking a risk, right? There is no guarantee in that in the business you'll earn profit, right? There is always a chance of failure. Okay. Next, they organize the other three factors of production. Okay. So these are the options we have. Okay. Okay, then in natural resources, we have two type of natural resources. When we discussed in the land part, and renewable resources and non-renewable resources. So renewable resources are like uh, uh, these are like we can use it again and again. Okay, so like fish, forest, water, like these kind of resources can be used again and again. That's why these are renewable resources. And non-renewable resources are like if you use them once, you cannot use them anymore. You cannot be replaced. So like coal, oil, diamond. Okay. So then there you can also distinguish your production into these two categories: labor intensive and capital intensive. So labor intensive is basically something that relies more on labor, and capital intensive production relies more on capital or machineries. Okay, so let's think about some examples like agriculture. Agriculture in our country, so it is dependent on uh, okay, okay. Good morning, Samir. I just noticed. Okay, thank you. Okay, okay. So let's get back to the topic. Okay, so labor-intensive production. So yeah. So in our country, in Bangladesh, the agricultural sector is labor intensive. They have labor intensive production, right? Why? Because you'll find that lots of laborers are working in this industry. Okay, and we are using a low amount of machinery in this sector. Okay, and in capital intensive production, what's happening that we are using yeah, machinery more. Okay, like you can think about like suppose car when we are producing cars. Okay, so it's mostly based on machinery. Okay, we are not producing that much of cars, like, but like if you think about like suppose car production in Japan. Okay, you'll be amazed to see how much machines they're using to produce. Okay, also another capital intensive production can be like agriculture sector in the USA maybe. Okay, in United States, what happens that they use a huge amount of machineries for their large lands. Okay, usually they don't go for labor intensive production. Usually they go for capital intensive. You'll find large land. You'll find very few amount of people working over there. Mostly machineries. Okay. Okay. So, and you should know this term called productivity. So, productivity is basically input output per input. Okay. So, those workers who can produce more output compared to the lower level of input provided, okay, then you can say that those workers are more productive. Okay. So this is a very important topic because if the productivity rises, then the farms will enjoy a huge amount of benefit. Okay, so here we have some of the ways to increase the productivity of labor. We have new working practices. You can come up with something new working practices. Then you know, like division of labor maybe. If you use them, the productivity usually rises. Then incentive. If you can motivate the workers, then they'll be motivated to work, the productivity will rise. Then you can make your machinery more efficient. Okay. And then by retraining workers to become more skilled. Okay. Okay, so if you retrain them, then the skill will also improve. Okay, let's move to the next chapter. It's a small one. It talks about the three types of production sectors in our economy, like primary, secondary, and tertiary. Primary sector includes all kinds of extraction of raw materials from nature or earth. Okay, so whenever we are extracting from nature, we are not from any human, human contribution. That's yeah, primary sector like farming, fishing, mining. Okay. Then secondary sector involves it has the man-made touch, right? It's converting a raw material into finished or semi-finished goods. Then tertiary sector includes production of services. Okay. And that's an important term over here, deindustrialization. So deindustrialization means like decline in manufacturing. Okay, that means the manufacturing is falling. Okay, so it's a trend in the developed country. In developed country, you will find that the workers are having in the manufacturing industry are losing job, and there are lots of opportunities coming up in the service sector. Okay, so what's happening actually that the developed countries are now focusing more on production of services, and they are shifting all their manufacturing plant to developing countries like Bangladesh, India, China, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, these countries. Okay, so what's happening is the deindustrialization. So manufacture is falling in developed countries. Okay. And service sector is improving. So this trend is known as deindustrialization. So see, there are some of the reasons mentioned here. So consumers' demand are changing. So demand for services are improving a lot. So that's why its service sector is booming. Then there's lots of competition. So there's constant pressure to reduce the cost. Okay, so moving to developing countries, way to reduce the cost. Then public sector is also coming up with the service sector. So investment in that sector is increasing, and technology is also improving. Okay. Okay, so that's all for today. We'll start from cost, and we're going in the next chapter, inshallah. Okay, thank you, everybody.